Hello and welcome back. You're tuning into RNF Unlocked. It's the final pit stop of the triple header here at the Moto TT Assen before we head off to a well-deserved summer break. My name is Neil Morrison and I'm joined today by my colleague David Emmett. We're on hosting duties and we're delighted to say that we're also joined by Wilco Zeelenberg at his home GP. In today's episode will all be about Wilco's world. Hello Wilco, how are you?
Hello fellows, yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
It's the end of a long slog, Wilco, 3 races in 3 weeks. How are energy levels for you at this kind of stage of the season? Are you ready for a break or are you still full of energy? Yeah.
Well, actually, I have to say, after the situation from Le Mans and Jerez, that Miguel, of course, was injured, we are actually coming back out of a difficult situation and they are recovering, So I think for Miguel, it's very nice to have a 5-week break to get his shoulder back in stronger, basically. For Raul, I think it's would have been nice to continue 1 or 2 races more because he's young, he's hungry, and with his youth, he need to be riding bikes. Also, with this arm pop problem is fixed, so he needs to ride more. But yeah, clearly everybody is ready for a 5-week break. When it shoots, and it's. I think for the first time in many years that we have a 5-week break. For sure, you know that better than me.
Absolutely, yeah. Before we get on to, we're going to talk about a variety of things in today's podcast, about the team and about some things happening in MotoGP. But since we're at Assen, your home race, you've obviously got a pretty interesting history at this track, Wilco. You were the hero that many people were cheering from the stands for many years. And just before we started recording, you were telling us 3 podiums, 1990, 91, 94. Some great memories at this track.
Yes, correct. So yeah, first of all, we have to learn how to race bikes on this track because it's the only bike track in the Netherlands. So we are very happy and proud about that. And especially in the past, the track was very special with every, Italian or Spanish came over, it was a different racetrack than the rest of the world. Basically, the banking and the fast corners and the track was very narrow. So we had a big advantage from that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you had 3 podiums here. Which was the most special?
Yes, 3 podiums. So I think the most special one, was the first one. Basically, I had a broken wrist and then I did not expect to be on the podium actually because I was injured, but Cadalora crashed in the last lap and actually it was given. The one who frustrates me the most is the second one because I should have won that one, but I fucked up basically.
And there were some different opinions, Wilco, but did they take away part of the circuit's character in 2006? I think it was obviously the first sector that we use now, very different to what was there before. And maybe the final sector that we use now still has the old character. What's your opinion?
Yeah, 100%. But, finally, when we were racing here in the 90s, the track was not a permanent track. It was open for the road. And so we could not use it the whole season. So at least we gain a racetrack because, since the track has been shortened and it is how it is now, we can use it every day of the year. So there are positives and negatives. So it's good that the youth can race and can ride here and all the bike riders. But clearly the track is a lot different than before. And it lost its finishing touch, I would say.
But the southern section is still the same, or almost the same as it was. It hasn't changed so much. There's been a few tweaks, but
well, the layout is the same, but it's 5-6 meters wider than before. So that changed it a lot. It was much more tight. And even saying that, even for the bikes we have now, it would have been too tight.
Yeah.
But in those years, riding this track in the Meeuwermeer and Ramshoek, when you reduce the size 6 meter, or maybe it's even more, we can check that. But it was like a bicycle road, in the past. So it was very narrow. You have to be very precise. And when you were off the white line, you did not have a curb. It was directly in the grass. You were on the ground. And there was a lot of banking in like the Bult and Mandeveen Duikersloot. There was a lot of banking corners. The Strubbe was completely second gear and banking.
Yeah.
So you could create a lot of speed. And not everybody had that feeling because it was the banking and the grip of the asphalt. And even in the rain, it was fantastic.
I think there was also the crown that you had on the road. So it was actually sort of like curved. So you had to go. I think like someone was telling me like Hoge Heide, you'd have to sort of like almost go up and over it rather than just straight on. No, you're looking at me.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You and me both. Well, moving on, we'll go from your home GP. Just a quick bit about the team's first part of the year. Obviously, we've spoken a few times before on the podcast. We haven't been the luckiest so far in 2023, but I mean, there's been definite bright spots here and there. Miguel's shown great speed, great potential certain times. Your summary of it.
Yeah, clearly, we have the speed, or we had the speed, or I don't know what to say, because of course after the injury of the shoulder, you know you're in trouble, because finally you don't have the strength. Clearly he has the pace, because in a free practice many times he's up there with the best boys, but to qualify and to make another step during qualification, you also need to have the power to do that, and I don't think he has that yet. And that drops you back a lot, because if you don't qualify well at the moment, you're back, and you can have a very nice pace. But if you're on 15, you have to pass all these boys who are 1/10 or different than you. It's very difficult to fight with one arm basically through the grid, So saying that. We are very happy with the situation where we are on performance-wise, I have to say, because if Miguel is fit, I know he can be on the podium or top 5, at least when he finished, when he was fit, the main race, he was at least top 5, and of course he threw away the sprint race, the 3rd place in Portimao, because Marc was behind and he was getting a little bit nervous in my eyes, and he finished 7th. But coming back from that big injury, of course, from Portimao, and do directly a 5th place in Austin, which was not a real favor of his, in his favor, that racetrack. And clearly Jerez, he had no chance. Also, again, bad luck is easy to say, but also he should not have been there. He messed up the start, and you're 10th, 11th, 12th, and then you're in the group, and it's nobody's fault. But finally, you're on the floor and crying, and you need to recover again.
This track seems to be because Miguel was saying, like Sachsenring, wasn't too bad with his shoulder because it's going in the right direction. This track is going to be much more difficult, and also much more difficult for Raul as well, even though he is gaining his strength and all the rest of it. It's still going to be very good because it's such a physical track. Yeah,
it is. It's interesting to see. So I also know that arm pump, especially in Assen, is quite severe. You have easy get cramp, because with this bike you need to go on throttle, change direction, and when you close, the bikes are very easy, but you have to keep the throttle open. Hoge Heide and coming back to the Ramshoek is difficult, and so I probably Raul will struggle a little bit more than Miguel, because Miguel was struggling in Sachsenring, but it's his left shoulder and it's all left corners. The speeds are lower, but you're hanging off all the time, and half race the shoulder did this, and he needed to kind of bring it home, because he said, as soon as I kind of relaxed during the race, it felt like the shoulder was coming out, so then it freezes a bit, and then he said I could manage, but was not easy. Let's see. Difficult to say. The forces are much higher, because the average speed is so much higher at this track than Sachsenring. So the forces are huge, and it's difficult to judge it in advance. But I see more problems coming for Raul than for Miguel, because picking it up from left to right, he doesn't have a big problem, or not a big, but. Let's see. Difficult to judge very well.
Wilco, I know obviously Miguel's had his injury problems, but if we look at the first 5 races of the year, we saw at least one Aprilia showing the potential to maybe finish on the podium or even fight for victory. The last 2 races though, Mugello and Sachsenring, it's been a little bit different. Even the factory Aprilias have been a little bit far away from the front, not where we quite expected them to be. I mean, what's your take on this? Ducati seem to have just stepped it up a gear, and the others are kind of struggling to catch up.
No, I agree with that. So that worries us as well, but it's clearly, also Sachsenring results is like 8 Ducatis in the top 9. So that's clearly a point of attention, I would say. It doesn't have a lot to do in my eyes, with the performance of the Aprilia, but more with the performance of the Ducatis. They're all very good. They make a big jump, and we know percentage-wise also the Aprilia improved. But suddenly, if there are 8 boys in front of you, you're fighting for 9, 10, and 11. So it's not that difficult to see. And of course, last round in Le Mans, for example, Maverick was in a very good position. So that race was very specific. He was very competitive. Mugello not. Sachsenring also he struggled. Aleix chose the wrong rear tire. That was also quite obvious. So I don't know where he ended up at the moment. He is still finishing 6th in Mugello, which I thought was not bad. But we want to be much closer to them. That is quite obvious.
It seems one of the, because of this new format, also like the starts have become so important. We've seen the KTM seem to be, I don't know what they've got, but they seem to have like nitrous or something. They're so fast off the line. The Ducatis are strong. It seems to be perhaps the Aprilia's weakest point is the start. How are you working with that? Is there anything you can do, or is it just down to getting the riders to get the timing right?
Yeah, it's the start, but especially the first lap. Yeah. And we know Brad is together with Darren. They are killers in that first lap. They position themselves very well. They are not afraid. They put their bike next to the other one. And that's also a skill. You don't need to be just fast. You also need to have a fantastic first lap to make the difference. And clearly, Brad and Jack are quite 2 guys who are quite good to do that. Because there are 2 more KTM's. On the grid, but they're always where they start, and they don't make the difference, So when we check the start speed, it doesn't make a lot of difference. It's more from the first corner, second corner, third corner, what creates the difference. And this is rider by rider, very important, and this is clearly not the best skills, I would say, from the Aprilia riders.
Can you teach it? That's why, you've got Torleif here, you've got experience here. Is it something you can teach?
Very difficult, because it goes really to your main safety issue, or also you need to judge very well intuition, I would say. This is a good
a combination between intuition and comfort zone, and being comfortable doing these.
Exactly, and it's not like shall I attack first corner around the outside or inside, because you can train that. But you need to also cooperate with the others, and especially Maverick, of course, is a very good example. He always loses 5, 6, 7, 8 places in the first lap. So he positioned himself badly, or so it's a skill as well that you need to do that. You can be in the front row, but you should not be 10th after the first lap. And if you look to the analysis and the data from what the rider lose during his career in his first lap, you learn a lot. And of course, if you qualify at the end of the grid, of course you always be able to gain more than when you're on the first row, because it's easier to lose. But it's also a skill that you need to see how they protect themselves, and if the guy in front of you, you don't want to outbrake him, you need to position yourself next to him so that they don't outbrake you, So it's a skill as well, and you threaten, but you don't go there, you know what I mean? You wait, but then the next guy behind you will never go deeper in that, or because you will not make it. So
Aleix's assessment after the German Grand Prix, Wilco, he said, he's pretty happy with how the Aprilia's performing, but maybe the rate of progress at Aprilia from last year to this year hasn't quite been the same as Ducati and certainly KTM. Is that how you would see it as well? Is that maybe one of the reasons?
Well, they clearly make a bigger step than us. And last year they were fighting for the win, and you saw last year they were 3rd and 4th. But it's obvious to see that they make steps, and but it's difficult to point out we should have done this or we should have done that. Of course, they decided to go with a satellite team, but the benefit from a satellite team for me will be in the future. They gain a lot of data now, and then at the end of the year they will see each racetrack what the benefits and the negative points were. And of course, they did not stop the development, because they gave us the 2022 bikes. This was very clear. And they continued the development. And this was, half December, we had our bikes and they were building new bikes. So I don't see that as a negative point, and especially in the future. I really believe, and also, let's see to Ducati how long it took before they are where they are now. You know what I mean? Because we should not forget that they have 8 riders on track, but they also made many mistakes and errors to make the bike new from last year. It was also a disaster, so they came back from that as well. So you can make mistakes during the development as well. And we should not forget that. And even, saying that, the championship is now so close because all the manufacturers agreed that how we were working 10 years ago with 20 liters of fuel and the ECUs just united for each manufacturer. And when we opened up, suddenly the Ducati was able to, match what the Yamaha and Honda was doing. So I think they also get the chance to be competitive because they could not finish a race with 20 liters of fuel.
It looks like it's gone the other way now. That Honda and Yamaha are really struggling. I mean, you've spent a long time at Yamaha. You know inside them. Obviously, you can't go too deep into it.
Yeah.
But can you see where they're struggling? Is this going to be a bit temporary? Like we saw, occasionally factories will have a bad year, or maybe even a couple of bad years before they can catch up. Or do you think there's something about the structure of the weekend, the schedule that makes it much more difficult for them to catch up?
Yeah, both sides a little bit. We know the Japanese are very, how do you say that in English?
Thorough, they're very conservative.
Conservative. And of course, I've been there, but they plan very well, but they're very conservative. We came with many ideas or whatever, but it's all, step by step. And the European manufacturers, they try everything. They go left, right, up, down. And at the moment, the decision has been made. We will do 21 races and less testing. And the riders agreed with that because they don't want to ride more. But if there is something to ride, they want to race. But the development stops because of that. And if you have only 2 bikes on the grid or 8, it makes a difference. And you need to create space to develop these bikes because now FP1 and FP2 are useless to develop anything because you cannot compare, anything if you need to qualify at the end.
There's some talk of the changes to the schedule, maybe FP1 becoming just a free practice, no longer timed.
I just came out of that meeting, so that's off the line. That's for next year. This is an
so for this year, it's going to remain. It's going to remain the same. Then next year, though, we're going towards untimed free practice 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they will time it, but it's not for.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to count. It's not going to count.
Yeah.
So you'll only have the one session.
Yeah.
Wilco, you have said a few times on the podcast this year that you're maybe not the biggest fan of this new schedule for 2023. Would that make a difference if we just took away P1 and as not counting towards Q2?
No.
You think they need to go a bit further, perhaps?
Yeah, I think everybody mutually agreed, except Ducati was against it. So I can say that because it's the reality. And if you want to change something during the season, you need to be agreeing, and that's fair enough. So they clearly see it different than us, and we thought it's a safety matter because we see crazy crashes and many riders are injured and bad injuries as well. And I think so far we have been quite lucky with many crashes that nothing more happened. So that's why we wanted to change. But clearly they said, no, all is fine. Everything is under control. I don't know why, because I don't think anything will change if FP1 is just a free practice. If it's enough, I don't know. But anyway, this is my opinion and I think I'm free to say so.
Would it help if there was more in-season testing? If there were more, because next year obviously we'll have 3 one-day tests in season instead of just 2.
Of course, this will help to develop the guys who are behind now, but even the guys who are coming back. Can you imagine if you miss 4 or 5 races?
Yeah.
And you need to do this speed. Look to Bastianini. He struggled to. He's coming back, but it's not easy when you miss 4 or 5 races. You cannot practice. You just need to jump on those bikes, and you need to continue. So that's one thing. But of course, it will not be very fair now suddenly to change and have manufacturers more testing time to prepare their bikes, because that's where, of course, also we need to be mutual agreeing with. But for me, the decision to go to more races is fine, because finally it's all for the show.
Yep.
But we get blocked for many other options, which means testing.
You mentioned some of the crashes that we've seen this year, Wilco. We saw 5 of them for one rider at the last race of the Sachsenring. I mean, there's, I guess, 2 schools of thought. You could say, one hand, that Marc Marquez at the Sachsenring was very brave and quite admirable. He just kept giving 100%, even when it was clear that the package wasn't up to scratch. But then the other school of thought is that maybe he should have accepted that it wasn't going to be his weekend and he needed to take it back. I mean, how do you see that kind of approach?
Well, Marc has his ambition, and clearly he's an 8-time world champion because he has this ambition and this remarkable physical strength. So that's why he's there. But luckily he didn't get injured, and a couple of the mistakes were his own mistakes as well. Second lap warm up is like, come on, let's give it a little bit of time to tire, for sure it was a used tire or whatever, but give it a bit of time to check how the bike is, but don't try to break the lap record in lap 2, at least when the bike starts to slide, it was a bit too much of everything, because he lost the front a couple of times, he lost the rear twice, and I can imagine that he gave up at the end because he tumbled off a couple of times too much, and but it's difficult to accept to slow him down, because he will not. And he clearly said that our ambition is not to win. Our ambition is at the moment to be 6 or 7. But clearly he's still pushing this bike over the limit. And at the moment the bike is clearly not ready to do that.
Yeah, and I guess that results in injuries, absences, and this may be one of the reasons why he's missed.
That's why we are asking for more track time without the pressure that they have, basically what they are having. Because if you're in not in Q2 on the first and second row, well, your weekend is not over, but it's very difficult to keep up with those boys that are doing a very high pace. So this is the trigger behind it in my eyes, and that creates a big issue and safety issue for the boys. So if you say FP1 is free, FP2 is no problem, you don't have to qualify, for sure they will fit new tires, but they don't go with the eyes closed for a time attack, because it doesn't make sense. They go for the fast lap, but for the fast lap, not for the time attack.
One of the things we also saw with Marc, I think especially with the gesture that he showed to his bike, where he was not at all pleased with it. It generated a lot of speculation. Also, 5 crashes about wanting to leave Honda, about breaking open basically breaking open the rider market. Also, we're seeing Pedro Acosta wanting to come up. Now you have your riders in principle nailed down for next year.
Yeah.
How do you see the rider market developing? There isn't any room for more teams in MotoGP at the moment, is there?
Well, it's a good question, but I think the wrong guy to ask, because I cannot answer them. Of course, it will be very hot, and it's a hot topic if Marc doesn't follow up his contract. And I don't know. It's difficult to say. I can imagine that he wants to create a situation that he gets better for himself, because finally he's a winner. But on the other side, let's be honest, I'm also worried that we all need those manufacturers to have riders, I mean, so it's already a pity that that our boys last year from Suzuki left.
Yes.
And we need to have all the more manufacturers, in my eyes, is better. And it worries me if Marc would leave, that what Honda could do, and this is something that maybe nobody thought about, but that would be worst case scenario.
Do you think the series could survive something like that, Wilco? I mean, obviously we would still have racing, but 4 less fights.
The series will always survive.
It will always survive.
But we need all these manufacturers. We want a competition, and that's the reality.
Do you think Pedro Acosta is ready for MotoGP? Having seeing him in Moto2, do you think he would? Because obviously, like you saw in Fabio Quartararo, he was ready, and you brought him to the team.
Yeah.
Do you think that Acosta is ready, or do you think he could have another year in Moto2? What would you do if you were his manager?
How old is he now?
19.
Fabio was also 19, but I think the jump is bigger now. Yeah. Than it was in 19 because the competition was a bit more spread. The fastest guy were very fast, but in the middle was a pack that the lap time difference was bigger. So he will have difficulty to do what he's doing now and to outperform himself, and especially what Fabio did. Suddenly be top 10 and be top 5 and be on the podium in the first year. That's really hard to do that. So, I think he will be ready because he's clearly showing his potential. He's very calm and, he behaves very well for the championship in my eyes. And I think he's ready. But, to perform what he's doing now, and he needs a couple of years as well to fight with those boys in the front. Because
right now it looks like he's surfing a wave of confidence, and if you come up to MotoGP and suddenly you're fighting for 15th, it takes. We saw this with Raul as well. Yeah. Raul came up. Yeah. He was amazing in Moto2, and he really struggled in MotoGP, and now he's having to build bit by bit. Yeah, no, clear. It's a big jump. Saying that, also we know that KTM has a very strong team in Moto2. So, we had Raul much better than the rest, basically, together with Remy. Mm-hmm. And as well, Pedro is now much better than the others. Could be a combination, because also Raul, when he come to MotoGP, he's suddenly also there with world champions directly. Yeah. So the level is very high, and they realize they need to learn these big bikes to ride, and electronics, and especially the braking is very demanding, because these bikes, I think they are used to override their bikes some way, somehow in Moto3 and Moto2, and they still are able to get away with that. But if you do that in MotoGP, you put the bikes in so much stress, especially on acceleration and breaking the traction, but also in stopping with the carbon brakes. Then you lose only lap time. You need to be fast and smooth. This is the trick in MotoGP. And the boys that are coming now around, they are fast, but they're 9 of the times overriding their bikes. Yeah. And to calm them down, to go faster, that's a trick to learn, and it takes time. Yeah, I always think of it as the way to going fast in MotoGP. It's almost like an exercise in Zen, where you have to control and be calm, and the calmer you are, the faster you go. Yes, but still you need to have big balls to open that exactly. To open that throttle in the right way. Just clearly close the eyes and open. No, you have to still control the throttle, even though there is a lot of electronics under that wrist. But you need to feel the bike. If you feel the bike, you can push it. But if you have no feeling, just think more is less or more is more. But it's not always the case, And this sensitivity, they need to learn, and this takes time.
So we're almost at the end of our discussion, Wilco. As this podcast is titled Wilco's World, I just want to finally know what is in store for Wilco's World during the 5-week summer break. I imagine a lot of relaxing. Yes, actually, I planned with my wife to go out with my van, put the bicycles in the back, and spend the time in Holland. You will not believe it, but it's true. It's a beautiful country. Why would you not want to go cycling around Holland? It's true. I went actually already to Malaga for 5 days after Jerez. And I went on a boat trip with a friend to Greece, which I never did before, and really enjoyed. So I had my 10 days already in the sunshine, and you can see I don't need the sun more at the moment. So Holland will be fine. Sounds lovely. Very nice indeed. Well, thanks very much. Maybe around Essen. I will. Yeah. it's full of elderly couples on bicycles. Yes. So, Elfstedentocht on the bicycle. Yeah. We did that, and I can recommend it. Yeah? Yep. Perfect. We can maybe ask you for some details in our next episode when we get to Silverstone in August. Yeah. Okay, so that ends RNF RNF Unlocked, and the latest episode that we've brought to you here today from the TT Circuit Assen. We'll be away from the paddock for a 5-week summer break, but we do hope to return with some interesting topics in the next episode. What's in store? Well, we don't know yet, but it surely will be a thrill. Follow us for more interesting contents, or comment below and suggest the topics you'd like to hear. Thank you very much, Wilco, and we'll see you next time in Silverstone.